Thanks everyone for joining us for today's program looking at safe transfers. I'm Andrea Salmon. I'll be facilitating today's webinar, and I've got Peter Simpson with me online as well today. We start all our programs with an acknowledgement of country, and in the spirit of reconciliation, MS Limited acknowledges the traditional custodians, past, present and emerging throughout Australia, and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders with us today. It's my pleasure to introduce Peter Simpson to you. Peter works for Assistive Technology Australia, and he's recently finished his certificate in Assistive Technology Mentoring, which is great for his role there. He's previously completed other courses in peer support and in creating accessible environments. Peter was also president of the Physical Disability Council New South Wales for many years and has a strong background in systemic advocacy. So it's great to have Peter with us today for what is the second of our mini-series looking at assistive equipment. So I'm going to click a couple of buttons here and turn off my camera so that I can pass over to Peter.
Great, thank you, Andrea. Thanks everybody for joining me today. Today we'll be looking at the topic of safe transfers. Just firstly, so as Andrea mentioned, I'm an AT mentor here at Assistive Technology Australia, and a lot of people ask me what is an AT mentor. So an AT mentor is somebody that has lived experience of using assistive technology, and I also mentor and support others in making informed choices about their assistive technology needs, and I also provide impartial advice on assistive technology to individuals. So I'll just start a little bit about Assistive Technology Australia and what we do. So we provide information and advice to people with disabilities, older people and carers on assistive technology solutions for everyday living. We also provide expertise through consultation, training and publications that we provide. And we're also a registered training organisation, as Andrea just pointed out, running our assistive technology and mentoring course, as well as other competency-based training for care workers, health professionals and built environment professionals. So today, context for today, we'll basically be looking at manual transfers and how they aid people in living their life and getting around their own home. So we'll also be looking at power hoists as well, which are quite good transfer options as well. Also funding options around how we can go about purchasing and acquiring our assistive technology, and just a few other resources that you might be interested in. So why transferring safely is important. So many injuries can occur while transferring, and a lot of those can be due to incorrect technique. So things like not actually knowing the correct way to transfer, whether it be to stand transfer into a bed or onto a chair or in the bathroom, for example. So one question you could ask yourself is, if you're having issues with that, is am I transferring in the best possible way, best possible technique? Also, are my transfers safe? So am I transferring in a safe way for me? Do I need advice on the best ways for me to transfer? So, for example, if you've never been taught the correct way to transfer, and whether you might be learning, whether you saw somebody else transfer, or you've just worked out on your own a technique that may or may not work for you. So that's also to think about as well. Fatigue is another reason too. So I know myself that if I'm transferring quite a few times throughout the day, when it gets to the end of my day, my transfers are getting slower, and because I may be tired because I've been transferring in and out of my vehicle all day, and being unable to concentrate on the task of actually transferring. So that's an important one as well. And going on from that, also the time of day. So are you somebody that fatigues more in the morning? You take a little bit of while physically and functionally to get moving in the morning. So you might be somebody that has difficulty with transfers in the morning, but gets better at those throughout the day. Or adversely, the other way around, you may be somebody that has a lot of energy in the morning and is really good with transfers, but as you tire throughout the day, they might become slower and harder to do. So that's another thing to think about as well. Environmental considerations as well. So is the equipment I'm using fit for purpose? So for example, is the mobile hoist that I'm using the best transfer option for me, for example? So that's another thing to think about as well. Is my equipment in good working order? Which is another really good one, and that applies to any particular piece of equipment or assistive technology that we're using. If it's not adequately maintained, it won't work the best for us. And also the appropriate layout of the home. So if I'm using, for example, if you're using a really big mobile hoist, for example, you know, is my home large enough for that hoist to be able to manoeuvre in between furniture, and whether I have a standing hoist even. So is my equipment able to move about in a clear space throughout the home to perform my transfers? So, and then we'll investigate ways to make your transfers safer, and also explore more assistive technology options that can assist us. So types of transfers. So the types of transfers that we may use on a daily basis would be sit to stand, or obviously stand to sit. So this may be whether it's standing, whether it's sitting in a chair, or getting into bed from a standing position, or even getting on the couch, the lounge or the couch. So when we're looking at for example, standing to sit transfers, a good method of doing this is that ensuring that our hips, knees and our ankles are always positioned at 90 degrees if we can, so that we're having feet and legs together, and that we're actually sitting in a safe position, and using arms for stability if we need to. So for example, if we need to lower ourselves down, or we're sitting in a low couch or a chair, for example, and we need our arms to help lift us up as we're standing through our legs. So that's another technique that could be used. So you may need a chair with, for example, side handles on the chair to help us push up with our arms and lift up in order to stand up. So that's a good one, using our arms for stability. So this will depend on individuals, of course, and everybody's functional circumstances, and it may be something that you want to get a little bit of professional advice from an OT on as well. I can't sort of emphasize that enough, is that, you know, before you try out a transfer, you think it may work, but you're not sure if it will, get a little bit of advice around that first, and have somebody actually standing with you as you're attempting a transfer for the first time, just to ensure that the way you're doing it is safe. So we've also got seated transfers. So seated transfers, for example, will be done by somebody in a wheelchair, where you're transferring from a seated position to another seated position. So yeah, transfer from a wheelchair. So and there's different ways you can use that. So for myself, I can actually weight bear on my legs, for example, but I can't stand. So when I transfer from my wheelchair, for example, I will slide myself forward onto the edge of my seat and actually place my legs in front of me between my foot plates. And when I transfer, I will actually lift my bottom off my chair and actually apply a little bit of weight on my legs. And then what I will do is I will swing myself over. So that's how I transfer. A lot of other people, for example, will transfer their legs first. So, for example, if you're getting into the bed, you may lift your legs first onto your bed and then swing your top half over. So that's another thing, that's side transfer. Unassisted and unassisted transfer. So this is where we're thinking about obviously whether we're able to transfer on our own or whether we need assistance, whether that be from an assistance from a piece of equipment or whether it be from another person that's physically assisting us to stand up or slide transfer. We've got the one I missed too was repositioning. So repositioning, when we're repositioning our body, for example, if we're sitting in the seat for a prolonged time, and it's always good to move around into a different position because it's actually quite unhealthy to stay seated in the same position for too long. We need to get our blood flowing and move around. So repositioning is classed as a transfer as well. And then we look at, and then there's vehicle transfers, which I know a lot of people are interested in today, which we'll look at a bit later. So some things to think about when we're doing a vehicle transfer is obviously the seat height is important. And I always encourage people, especially if they're purchasing a new car, but also purchasing a second-hand car as well, is trial a few different vehicles and make sure that you're able to transfer in and out of them well, and that they can actually suit you rather than actually buying a car and then finding out that you're having issues transferring in and out of that vehicle. Okay, so just a few general transfer considerations is user and equipment positioning. So the positioning of equipment appropriately for my transfer. So making sure that that piece of equipment is adequately positioned for me to access it and transfer onto it, and also to be able to transfer onto whether it's a seat or a bed and the location of where I'm transferring to as well. Selecting the right piece of equipment for the task. So what I'm meaning by that is selecting the right piece of equipment for the type of transfer that I am doing. So whether it be, and this will depend upon your functional capability. So if you're somebody that requires a mobile hoist, for example, to transfer to a bed, to a toilet, or anything like that, or whether you just need a pole, for example, that for you to hang on to help you stand up. So making sure you have the right piece of equipment for the task. In your functional ability as well, which I just alluded to. So, and your functional ability will guide you towards the type of the type of transferring equipment that you need to affect those transfers. And also, as we just spoke about, assisted and unassisted. So, what type of assistance do I need when individually transferring? This one is probably the most important slide in this presentation, and that is the role of the formal assessment. So if someone is experiencing changes affecting the transfer methods or have any other concerns, it is recommended they be assessed by an occupational therapist. So this one is vitally important. So if you're somebody that is new to your disability or condition, or if you're somebody that you're your strength and your mobility function changes on a regular basis. That will also mean that the way you transfer may change as well. So this is always important to if you have any issues around, am I transferring safely? What's the best way for me to transfer? Your first point, of course, should be an occupational therapist or a physio or a health professional that you can help you, and also help make recommendations on the most suitable transfer options for you to use in regards to your individual circumstances and requirements. So now what we'll do now is we'll have a look at a few transferring aids. So we'll start with a few manual transferring aids, and we'll look at a few bed positioning. So the first two is actually what we call a slide and a turn sheet. So this is actually used in a bed for somebody who has difficulty repositioning. So whether that be rolling from your side to your back or your stomach, for example, these sheets are actually quite slippery, and it will either assist you unaided to be able to turn yourself, or if you're somebody that needs assistance in turning in and needs assistance in turning in bed, it will help somebody else able to roll you, because the bed is now a bit slippery. So as you can see, the bed sheet is actually placed on the bed at whatever location is best for you to make that turning easier. Down the bottom, we've got a few manual leg lifters as well. The one on the right's a powered one, but this, as you can see by the pictures, this assists somebody in getting their legs into bed. So if you're able to sit down on the edge of the bed, okay, but you're somebody that you don't quite have the strength to be able to shift your legs over and move them into bed, these are manual leg lifters. So as you can see, there's a loop on the bottom that you put your feet in, and then you're using your arms to lift your legs over and into bed. So they're really good. The one on the right-hand side is actually a powered leg lifter. So as you can see, the lady's got her legs on another sort of bench that comes out from the bed, and she's powering that by remote control. So she's raising and lowering her legs. So that's a number of options there with getting in and out of bed and positioning. Couple of other bed transferred aids is bed poles, rails, or sticks. So the first two on the top line are actually bed rails. So as you can see on that picture on the left-hand side, the bed rail actually slides under the mattress. And as you can see, it will come in as a single pole or a dual pole. So these are another option as well. The one consideration you do have to make too is that these can be a little bit dangerous too. If you're somebody that rolls around a lot in bed, or you know, fidgets a lot in bed, if you're leaving that bed pole there permanently, and you're constantly knocking an arm or knocking a leg into it, can be a little bit dangerous. So that's things you need to think about as well when we're using bed rails and things like that. The bottom left-hand picture is actually what the lady's using is actually a bed rope. So this will actually assist us from getting from a lying down position to a sitting position. So it's actually used like a ladder. So we actually pull ourselves up with our hands along the rope, which actually has hand grips installed in them as well. So that's a good manual unassistive aid that we can use. And then the other two is slide boards. So slide boards are obviously good for seating transfers. So whether it be onto another chair or onto a bed, and we obviously one edge of it we put under our leg, which is on our wheelchair, and the other side onto the bed or whatever we're transferring into, and just sliding ourselves across. So that's what those two are. We'll also look at a couple of chair transfer aids. So we've got several transferring aids here that will help us stand up from a seated position. So the first one is of a standing aid, a standing pole. So as you can see in the picture, she's using it. Her lounge, her seat will actually get her to a part standing position, and then she's using that rail which is attached to the floor and the ceiling. She's using that rail to then pull herself up. So then there's that one, the standing aid, which is the second picture, which is actually the round disc on the top actually slides out of that white base. So it will actually allow us, as we're standing on it, to sort of slide out. And then we've got another slide board as well. And then the two down the bottom are transferring benches. So the waist belts can be used by somebody else to help us lift. So the picture on the right hand side, as you can see, the red straps. So somebody else may actually hold those straps and assist us to stand. Using our own weight as well. So that's how the weight belts are actually used. Okay, well now we'll have a look at a few raisers. So raisers we can use, while they're predominantly, raisers can be used to lift anything off the ground to something that's higher that we need to transfer onto. So for example, the top left hand side are raised blocks. So those ones are actually primarily used for chairs. So for example, you can see different size holes that are positioned around the block. They're used to put legs of chairs on, so we would lift the chair up and put the legs in those holes in the block. So if we're somebody that has trouble sitting down into a lower position, we can actually lift the chair up. And to be able to do that. On the right hand side is also a toilet seat surround. So again, it's another way of raising the toilet seat. And as you can see, it's portable. We can just slide it over the toilet seat. Allows us to not necessarily have to sit down so far. The one directly below the blocks on the bottom left hand side is what we call an elephant's foot. So they're called elephant's feet. So these are primarily used for beds. So these will raise beds to for example, to get a hoist under them, for example. That's what they're primarily used for. So a lot of people that use mobile hoists, for example, will carry these around with them and will use them in hotel rooms or something like that to be able to raise the bed to get a hoist under them. And then the bottom right, we've got a raised toilet seat as well, which will raise the toilet seat, allowing us to get on and off that. We've also got a number of turn disc options. So turn disc options help us to basically change direction when we're standing up. So if we're somebody that has trouble, once we're turning, sort of changing direction, and also will assist somebody to help us to stand as well. So the number of different designs here. So the two on the left hand side are just a disc on the floor. So the top disc moves on top of the bottom one. So allows us to swivel. And the other two will actually allow somebody to actually lift it back while we're standing on it and move us along the floor, because they've got wheels on them. So that may be another option for somebody with an ambulance disability as well. Now we'll just have a look at a couple of vehicle transfer aids. So I know there's been a lot of sort of inquiry as to what people can do in regards to transferring in and out of their vehicle. So here we've got a number of aids. So The handy bar, which is on the left, acts similar to a grab rail. So the handy bar actually slides into the hinge, which is actually inside the car door. When you open the car door, on the seat side of the door, there's a hole where the door closes, where the round hinge is. So this handy bar will actually slot into that hinge, and as you can see in the pictures, will allow somebody to use that bar to, whether it be push down on or lower themselves down, to do a sit-to-stand transfer out of their car seat. And again, slide boards for somebody that's in a wheelchair for a slide transfer. One thing we do need to look at when we're doing a slide transfer is obviously the height of the seat of the vehicle in relation to our wheelchair. So this might mean that we might look at a car, for example, that has electronic seats, for example, that we can electronically raise or lower them to a designated setting, for example. The one on the top right-hand side is actually a what we call a portable hand window strap. So similar to the handy bar, this will assist us in standing and sitting down in the car seat. Can be used on both the driver's side and the passenger side. And as you can see, it's a simple strap that straps around the top edge of the car door, and with the handle will allow ourselves to use our body weight, to pull with our body weight to sit down and stand. And then directly below that is what we call a car seat slide pad. So as you can see, the top of the pad slides on top of the bottom pad. So this will allow us, for example, to sit down in the car, on the car seat with our legs outside the door, and be able to swing ourselves around and get our legs in. So this is for somebody that may have issues with repositioning once they sit in the car, to actually get their legs around and turn to face a forward direction. So something like a slide pad like this might be really good for people to use. Just one consideration with these slide pads is that a lot of cars today, the car seat isn't totally flat. It might have some, they might be bucket seats, for example, which have the edges of the seat have wings that might come up a little bit. So using something like this, you may need to use some sort of padding in the middle of the seat to make it more level for you to be able to put the slide pad on top of. So that's another way of getting your feet, of assisting you to getting your feet into the vehicle. Okay, now we'll just have a look at a few power hoist options for us. So, firstly we'll look at a mobile hoist. So a mobile hoist is usually the most commonly used hoist that people use, primarily because they're mobile. You can take them, they will fold up. You can put them in the back of your car, for example. You can use them when you're traveling on holiday. You don't have to use them in the home. They can be portable and disassembled and transported. A couple of considerations would be, these type of mobile hoists should not be used to transport a client in the hoist. So what I mean by that is that if somebody is sitting in the hoist, you shouldn't be, they shouldn't be necessarily wheeled all around the house, for example. It's only primarily used to go from a bed to a wheelchair, for example, and not wheeling them, not actually using it as a seat and wheeling them a great distance in them. Also, there's a dignity of user issue around that as well, is that people may not want to be, wheeled around. Sitting in a hoist, sitting in a sling in a hoist, a lot of people can find that quite vulnerable, particularly if they're not confident in the support worker that's assisting them in that hoist. Just remembering that when using this hoist, people can actually feel quite vulnerable if they're left in the hoist for too long and the power is sort of taken away from them a little bit. So these type of hoists, as I said, are generally used for transfers such as bed to wheelchair, to commode, or from wheelchair to toilet. So a few considerations around this type of hoist would be, will the hoist fit under the bed, around a chair? So as I mentioned before, we may use something like razors, for example, to lift our bed up. As you can see in this picture, this particular hoist actually fits under that bed quite well. So a lot of people, I find it quite a lot. People come to me and say, you know, I'm always traveling, and when I'm using hotel rooms and things like that, not a lot of their beds are high enough. So that's one I always say to people. It's good to, whenever you're traveling, if you use a mobile hoist, for example, pack some bed raisers in your bag with you, because you never know when you may need to use them to raise a bed, for example. And so the other thing too is, will the person's wheelchair commode fit within the internal width of the base of the hoist? So as you can see, the bottom legs of the hoist, they also need to fit. They need to fit around or under wherever your person is being picked up from, transferred from. So that needs to be a consideration as well. A lot of mobile hoists on the market, those legs will actually spread. So you can actually spread them out so you can fit them around more pieces of furniture and they're not necessarily fixed. So that's another consideration too. Another thing as well is when the hoist is lowered to its minimum, will it allow a person to be picked up from the floor or a low lounge? So that's something we need to consider too, is how low will that hoist actually drop, and will that meet our needs? So if you're somebody, for example, if you fall out of your wheelchair and somebody needs to hoist you up off the floor, for example, will that type of hoist actually go that low and be able to pick me up from the floor? And just a few other considerations around the footprint. So the hoist should be able to fit through doorways and have an adequate turning space within your home. So just ensuring that the mobile hoist can be used in all rooms of the home and will fit through doorways. Storage is another consideration. So I need enough space to store it when it's not in use. If you're somebody that, if you live in a house, for example, that doesn't have a spare room, and you may be somebody that needs to be able to store a lot of equipment, such as a mobile hoist. So you need to factor in, you know, where those things are going to be stored, things like that. Also, battery charging requirements. You know, a lot of these hoists will be able to be charged, but how long are they going to last, for example? How long do they take to charge in relation to how often I'm using my hoist? And another important one too is the support. There's the ability of the support person, of the support worker that's assisting you. They obviously need some training and need to know how to operate the hoist, because at the end of the day, you're going to be the person sitting in the sling in the hoist, and you need to know that the person operating that hoist knows how to use it correctly, and that you're going to be safe. Another mode of hoist we've got is the overhead fixed track hoist. So this style of hoist runs along a permanent fixed track that is actually fixed to your ceiling in the home. And these are used if the user is not able to transfer themselves independently. This style of hoist requires less circulation space as it's not being used on the floor, so you're easily being able to transfer yourself over the top of things and lower yourself down, rather than having to put like the mobile hoist, get it under furniture. They're easier to manoeuvre than a mobile hoist as well, so that they're easier to lower and raise, and also swing you sort of back and forth along the track to get you into position. And also the user can be transported throughout the whole house while in the hoist. So the hoist is going to be strong enough to be able to move you. If you have a fixed track hoist, for example, that goes through a number of rooms or throughout your house, you may be able to transfer it for example, from your bed to the lounge in the lounge room, for example, and go greater distances. So with these style of hoist, professional installation is required. Again, because we're fixing this to a ceiling, similar to a grab rail, the integrity of how these are fitted is vitally important, and that they take the weight of the person that's using them. So with these track hoists, we can obviously get them straight or angle fixed throughout the house. So as you can see in the picture, we can get that. They won't just go straight. We can get them coming in different directions, and the angles that we need to be. Turntables allow the user to be moved along the straight track and to be turned 90 degrees into a track running in a different direction. So as I just mentioned, this style of track will allow you to go from one room to another, and will actually change directions, allow the hoist to change directions on the track as well. So that's another good style of hoist as well, as they work like railway tracks. The gantry hoist. This is a type of hoist that people can use. It's not used a lot, but it's actually a freestanding suspension system. So this style of hoist can be used, for example, where you don't need to make major modifications to the home. So as you can see, it operates off a stand. So for example, this might be a good option for somebody that lives in rental accommodation, for example, and somebody that may not be able to get permission to get a fixed track hoist or another style of hoist modified into the home. So in saying this, though, this style of hoist, as you can see, will not allow somebody to move from one location to another. So it's primarily used for just to raise somebody from their bed and transfer them to something that's nearby, whether it be a bedside seat or a wheelchair, something that is close by. And also, too, this style of hoist are handy to have if your ceiling track hoist breaks down, your permanent hoist breaks down, for example. So you might have one of these portably tucked away somewhere, and if you need it, if your ordinary hoist breaks down, you might be able to use it as a good option. We'll also look up stand-up hoists. So these type of hoists will lift somebody from a seated into a supported standing position. So it's good for somebody that's doing a chair transfer, for example. Allow a support person. So this might be used for. You might need a support person to help you with this too. So it may help you, for example, if you're standing up and you're going from the seat to your bathroom to use the toilet, for example. As you can see, it has wheels on it. So with somebody supported with that sling, as you can see, the person is able to be wheeled around on it to various locations. So it works by placing the user's feet on a platform with the knees against a knee support. So the person doesn't necessarily have to doesn't have to stand independently, but needs to be able to take a little bit of their own weight on their legs. And the narrow sling comes under the arms, but does not support the upper back, heads or shoulders. So you still need to have really good support around your shoulders and your head, and be able to hold those up independently. And then the user reaches up and holds onto the arm grips, as you can see in the photo. So hangs on for support as they're being wheeled around in the hoist. So this is another type of hoist as well, but can also, the considerations are very similar to the last one as well. So this is obviously a horizontal. Okay, so this one is a powered horizontal movement. So this is somebody that again is going from a seated to a standing position. And this picture is actually of a Sarah Steady. It's called a Sarah Steady stand-up hoist. It's a sit-to-stand manual transfer aid. So it enables the support person to assist with the sit-to-stand transfer. And the pivoting seat moves out to enable the user to stand. And the frontal knee guard provides leg support whilst raising into a standing position, so that obviously that guard at the front that his knees are pushed up against are giving his legs giving his legs support as it's helping him stand. So with a hoist like this, the user needs to have a good cognitive ability and be able to follow instruction. So, for example, as the support person is guiding them through the process, they need to be able to not work against them in trying to remove themselves from that hoist, basically, while they're trying to stand. So that can be a safety issue as well. So you may not necessarily use this hoist with somebody that may have issues with taking direction very well. So that's another consideration for this style of hoist. So another power hoist we'll have a look at are actually pool hoists. This is something that I get asked quite a lot about, and people wanting to access this swimming pool and things like that. So there's both with pool hoists, there's both portable and fixed options. So we'll have a look at the one on the left. So the one on the left is a fixed mobile hoist which is attached to the outside of the pool. So this style of seat would be good for somebody for doing a seated transfer, for example, from a wheelchair to this fixed seat. So the seat will be able to lower to any height you require it to. And maybe, for example, with a slide board, somebody might be able to transfer from their wheelchair onto this pool seat and be lowered into the water. Also, somebody can do a sit-to-stand transfer on this type of seat as well. And may have armrests as well, optional armrests as well, and will be allowed somebody to be lowered or taken out of the pool. The middle picture is actually of a platform option. So this option here, you're sitting in your it might be a shower or a beach chair, or you're standing on this platform and getting lowered down into the water. So this is another option. Again, this is probably quite a costly option, because as you can see, it needs to be integrated into the actual pool design, but that's an option as well. And then on the right hand side, we've actually got a sling option. So rather than a firm seat, this is actually a sling that somebody's sitting into and getting lowered in and out of the water with. So that's a number of pool options as well. Bath hoist. Now, we spoke, if any of you attended attended the first webinar last week on bathroom safety, we spoke a little bit about bathroom hoists, but we didn't actually look at this particular one. So this one will actually sit inside the bath and will actually slowly lower somebody into the bath. So as you can see in the top picture is the maximum height of the lift. So you might, for example, sit down on, you might do a seated transfer from outside the bath and swing your legs around into the bath, and then this seat will have a remote control and will allow you to electronically raise or lower yourself into and out of the bath when it's full with water. So it's firmly secured to the bath as well. So there's no chance of it actually sliding around, and it's and this particular seat's battery operated as well. So we'll need charging on a regular basis depending on how often you're using the hoist. We'll look at a few vehicle occupant hoists as well. So we had a look at, before we had a look at a few manual transferring options for getting in and out of a vehicle. Now we'll have a look at a few powered options as well. So this particular hoist is designed to lift a user from a wheelchair to the front passenger or the driver's seat. So it's actually internally fixed inside the vehicle, which will need professional installation, and it has you can actually on that second picture, as you can see, the bracket sits inside the vehicle, and you're able to take the hoist in and out of that bracket. So the only part that's permanently fixed is that bar attached to the car that the hoist comes in and out of, that the bracket comes in and out of. So the boom hoist actually slots into the bracket to operate on that second picture, and it lifts operated by remote control, and will actually swing as well. So swings you, picks you up and swings you in and out of the vehicle on that arm. And this particular model is actually powered by the car battery, runs off the car battery, so it doesn't need remote charging or anything like that. We've got a few vehicle occupant hoists here. So these are probably the most common vehicles that we see in taxis, for example, and wheelchair vans that are used. So it's a platform. It's a platform lift designed to lift a wheelchair or a scooter user in and out of a bus or a van. So these can obviously be installed as rear or side access, or the hoist may even come out of, may even slide out from under the vehicle. That's a different design hoist as well. So rather than folding up inside the vehicle, they may be able to slide out as a platform from under the vehicle as well. So these are obviously used by remote control, and some of these can also be self-operated as well. So if you're somebody that's a self-driver, for example, you might have a van that has various modifications that you're able to operate on your own, for example. So when we're looking at all types of power hoists as well, we need to ensure that safety and training is important for anybody that's using a hoist. Also, it's important to choose the right sling for the user's needs and comfort. So one thing we will look at now are the slings that are actually used in conjunction with a mobile hoist and actually picking up a person. So the various sling types that we have are general purpose slings. So general purpose slings are the most commonly used sling, and they can actually be positioned and removed from the user while they're seated or lying down. And they can be available with or without head support. So the most common transfers that these slings are used for are between the bed and the chair, for example, or from the floor, picking someone up from the floor to the wheelchair. They can be used for toileting, but not necessarily, but not particularly ideal, as they won't have the commode hole at the bottom of the sling for that hygienic access. The other type of slings we have a full body sling or a hammock sling. So these are also suitable for users being transferred in and out of bed. These type of slings need to be positioned or removed while the user is lying down. So the sling is generally placed on the bed, for example, and the user may be rolled on top of the sling, for example, or they may be rolled onto the sling and then seated, lifted into a seated position, and then the sling may be attached around them. These type of slings provide head support. Some of these slings also have a commode hole that will assist with toileting, so you can actually go to the toilet while still sitting in the sling after being transferred. And then we have a hygiene or an access sling. So this is suitable for general transfers, for example, into the bathroom, onto a shower chair or commode, or into a toilet. And this type of sling actually provides less support than a general purpose sling. It provides good hygiene access for toileting and washing. And similar to the hammock sling, it should be positioned onto the user while they're lying down. Couple of other things too was sling material. So there's various materials that slings can be made out of. So the polyester mesh is probably the most common one, as it's strong and is long lasting. And this is the best option. This is the best option material for bathing, as the open weave design allows for quick drainage and drying when not being used. We've also got a polyester nylon type of sling. This is popular for everyday use, and it's long lasting and slides easily in and out of under a person and in the position, and it cleans and dries easily. There's also canvas slings, which are made of a thicker material, but they're not as smooth and they don't dry as quick, but they can be padded for extra comfort. So some considerations around choosing the best sling for you. So it's best to choose a sling that is so that works best with the hoist. So generally, that you should be using a sling that is best made for that chosen hoist. So most hoists will accommodate a variety of slings. The other thing too is, before buying the sling, trial it. So get professional advice and trial a few slings to see what works best for you. Skin integrity too can become a problem with people with slings that are made of different materials. Somebody's skin, for example, may have an adverse effect to one type of sling material rather than others. So that's something to think about as well. Slings come in a range of sizes, and the same sling size may vary between manufacturers of slings as well. So it's like buying clothes, you know, a medium is not necessarily a medium in all the different brands. And from a load point of view too, it's usually safe to get a sling that will actually hold 10 kilograms above the user's weight. So just making sure that the sling will actually take more load than what is actually stated, just from a safety point of view. So another thing we'll look at too is, a lot of people ask me is how do I fund my equipment. So in the various states, there's a number of different funding options as well. So nationally, we've got the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which a lot of people may be participants of. So you must be an NDIS participant to use this. Also Department of Veterans Affairs for people that have a Veterans Gold or White card. So that's a good point of call as well. And also Enable in New South Wales is a good place to get equipment if you're not covered by the NDIS, for example. Okay, some useful resources. So these are actually taken from our website. So we have a number of buyer's guides, which are actually on our website in the publication section of our website. So there's a number of resources, particularly around manual handling for anyone that's involved with lifting and transferring. So that might be something that you would like to have a look at. So we have other guides as well, which are guidelines about selecting the right type of assistive technology. Some of these guides are also useful for health professionals as well as for consumers and carers. And I'll just point out that we have a number of guides as well that help to choose the right sling and also to choose the right hoist for the home. So we have a number of guides around those sort of things as well. We also have our at-glance guides, which are a detailed summary of factors to consider when purchasing different types of assistive technology. So, so just lastly, before I say thank you and thank you for joining me for my for this Safe Transfers presentation today. As I said before, I just want to clarify that if somebody is experiencing changes and has any doubt about their transferring methods or have any other concerns, please consult your occupational therapist. They should always be your first point of call when looking at these types of assistive technology, because an OT can make a recommendation on the most suitable, whether it be hoist or transfer option, after having assessed your personal functional requirements. So thank you for joining me today, everybody, and I hope you got a lot out of it. And if there's any questions, now's your chance to put them to me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Peter. That's been really fabulous. And I've got to say that, you know, from my days as an occupational therapist, one of my favourite gadgets is that little bar that you can put in the door handle of the car so that you can, or in the hinge of the car so that you can get out of the car more readily. That's fabulous. So there are some questions that have come in. So please ask them. I'll give you a couple of seconds by going through a couple of other things. You've got Peter's contact details and you've also got our contact details, and we strongly encourage you to type in some questions now. I'd just also encourage you to consider some of the other options around getting other people with MS their advice. So don't forget to tap into peer support, where you can talk about things that people have found helpful. We've got lots of support through MS Connect around accessing the NDIS. And as Peter mentioned, the Enable program in New South Wales, each state has an equipment fund that you can access depending where you are living. So let's have a look at some of the questions that have come in. Peter, there was a question around the hoist that it works for people transferring into the car that runs off the car battery. Is there a risk of that draining the car battery, or does the car battery recharge as the car is driven?
I think it's, again, this is something you're probably better off contacting the supplier for actual specifics on the product, but generally these type of products, similar to a van hoist, for example, it's probably ideal to, for example, to leave the car engine running, for example, while you're using it, so that you don't actually drain that battery.
Yeah.
That's probably something that a lot of people do with those sort of modifications. So that's probably something that I advise you to do. But again, if you have any other issues, probably contacting a manufacturer is probably the best bet, just to clarify those particular things on a specific product.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Shiva had a question around bed sticks. He thought he'd heard that they were banned as a safety issue.
Yeah, they're still actually available, and that's why I mentioned that that they're quite a big safety risk, as people can get, as I said, people can get caught up in them, and they can be quite restrictive. So while I mentioned them as an option, I would, there's also safety considerations such as that around bed poles and those bed sticks. So, always get allied health professional advice before you look at using something like that. Never use something like that on your own, for example. Always get advice around it first.
Absolutely. Yep. And I was going to add that, and just that reminder, because it was great that you've encouraged that throughout the program, that a program like this can only be very general and everybody should get individual advice for their own circumstance. What about...
Sorry, I was just going to add, yeah, absolutely. And while the subject of transferring that we covered today is actually will always be quite specific to the individual. So
yes.
while today we looked at it transferring broadly as a topic, it's very hard to talk about specific transferring techniques because they will be different to the individual.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly right. So it's always good to get an OT's advice.
Yep. Now there's a question around raised toilet seats, because I know there are a variety of aids that can help raise the height of a toilet seat. And this question is, do raised toilet seats come with armrests?
You can yes they do. There's different styles of sort of raised toilet seats. So the one that I had in my slide is obviously just a portable one that will actually just fit onto the generic toilet bowl. But you can get I had another picture there of a toilet surround, which is actually similar to like a walking frame, which will actually sit over the toilet. For those that joined my last webinar last month on bathroom safety, we had a look at a few toilet surround options that actually have armrests. So you could actually get them with armrests as well, whether they fix to the wall or whether they're part of the actual seat raiser. So there is those options around as well. And I will say that if you go to our website, we actually have lots of detailed products on our website. So that might be your first point of call. We have a few options of toilet raisers with armrests and things on our website for you to have a look at.
That's great. And that's a good reminder too, that a few people asking for supplier lists and where to get gadgets. The website is your best option for finding the specific suppliers, and you can also always ring Assistive Technology Australia, and you've got all those details in your handouts. So
absolutely. Sorry, and I would just add too, for anybody that's interested and for anybody that lives in New South Wales, particularly Sydney, out here at Blacktown, we actually have a one-bedroom apartment showroom set up, which includes a kitchen, living space, bedroom and a bathroom, which actually has assistive technology all fitted out. So if anybody would like to come in and see what we have here actually on site, they can absolutely just drop in and see us or contact us and make an appointment for a visit.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. Peter, thank you so much again for your time. A good reminder too that this program will be available on our website shortly. It actually might take a few weeks because Annie's going on leave and she's our girl that puts them on. She's the team member that does that. But the previous one that we've referred to today around bathroom safety, that's available through our webinar library on the MS website. And a great little thank you has come in that sums it up better than I can, Peter. Julie said, thank you very much, Peter. She's learned easier ways to get into bed, car hoists, getting into the pool. It's been wonderful. Thank you once again. So that's a great way for us to finish today, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in a month's time when we have our third program around equipment. So thank you, Peter, for all the effort you've put into today, and thank you everyone for your participation. We'll look forward to seeing you at another webinar.